Like my sleep is like, it's like a computer sleep mode. I don't actually rest. I'm just kind of like
the blender
processing
interface.
thing. Exactly. Like I'm in the mainframe. Like.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg Podcast. We're here with Intra, second time on the podcast, and one of the more requested repeat guests. So excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be back.
How have you been?
I've been all right. I'm almost towards the end of my uni degree, so I can see the light, and I'm starting to like calm down a little bit. But the dissertation's the only thing in the way. But other than that, I've been doing good, really good.
Damn, you have to write like that for computer science? I didn't even know.
15,000 words. And I thought it was like 8,000 up until a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why I didn't read the brief properly, but
damn,
15,000 is quite a lot. Yeah. It's nothing, just a little.
I know, because I remember last time we were talking, you were like, right, kind of in the thick of all your university stuff.
Yeah.
Probably almost like a year ago now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I had my little hiatus, but now I'm starting to like get back into gear, ready for when my like uni degree is over, just have stuff to throw myself into as soon as it's done.
Yeah, it's good to get it kind of ready, so once you're like, you don't have that free time where you're doing nothing, and then you just kind of get like lazy and shit.
I'm quite scared of like the void of after university, like what's gonna come, so I'm trying to like lay out a bunch of stuff to keep me busy, so that I just like transition smoothly into it, and so I'm not like just like thrown into this void of adulthood and responsibility with no kind of plan.
It's weird. Like every phase of like schooling and like different parts of my life, I always thought that the one I was in was hard, and then it just gets like harder. Like high school, you're like, I can't believe I ever thought it was hard, because when I got to university, I was like, this is so hard. And then when I graduated into real life, I was like, damn, college.
You don't feel
easy.
like it gets a bit easier though? Like in terms of school has so much pressure, and it's so like it's boxed into, you know, this exam and that exam, and then kind of like when it becomes a bit more open, you have a bunch more responsibilities, but doesn't it feel a little bit more like the freedom makes up for like the difficulty, and so that kind of like levels out a bit? I don't know. Yeah,
a little bit, but you know, everyone in the real world's trying to put you into that little structure as well.
That's
so
true.
You don't really, it's like I think it's two different kinds of stress, you know, like it's like if you have when I was working as an employee, there's a lot of stress around that. And it was, but most of the stress was based around the fact that I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. Once you're able to do what you want to do, then all the stress comes down to like figuring out how to actually make that successful, you know?
There's like a Greek concept of like eustress, like EU stress. And it's almost like the healthy level of stress that a human needs to keep progressing or like keep advancing in their practice and stuff like that. But I have not nailed that. I'm definitely overworking, burning myself out so much, but I'm trying to move towards like positive stress that like allows for like progression,
right, and
not plateauing in like what you're doing, but definitely takes a lot of like hard work and like curation to get to that point. So that's what I'm trying to like work towards kind of at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing that too. Just didn't know the like terminology for it or whatever. But I found that the stress of like being like, you don't know what to do and you're like lost or whatever that will always outweigh for me the stress of being like burnt out and stuff. Like I'd rather be doing too much things at once than feeling like I'm having like a crisis and I don't know what to do about anything.
How do you manage to like switch off after a long day of like working? Because I feel like I find myself going to bed and just still like ruminating over ideas, and like my sleep is like, it's like a computer sleep mode. I don't actually rest. I'm just kind of like
the blender
processing
interface.
thing. Exactly. Like I'm in the mainframe, like sleeping kind of like on this like slightly tuned down version of what my awake self is, because there's so many things that are keeping me up. So it's almost like I'm still brainstorming stuff when I'm meant to be relaxing. I don't think I actually am able to, but in a way I really like that. It's probably like what's led me to always have things going on, always like be pushing myself. But I hate being that friend that's always like, oh, this is going to be a hard week, and like after this week it's going to like chill out. Like I'm going to get all my like deadlines, all of my commissions handed in. And then there's always something else, but that's how I choose to live. I'm pretty sure like that's my choice.
I don't know if let's say for example, I'm in like the other, like the living room where it's like I'm supposed to like not do stuff. I'll just like be watching a thing and I'll have to pause it and I'll run over to the computer and then I like do shit and then it's like already been an hour and then I'm like, oh damn, I forgot to relax.
You get lost in it. You get lost in it. Like I like when I watch like a movie or something like that, I now have this really bad habit of pulling up multiple screens. So while I'm watching a film, I'm on like TikTok here, I'm like watching a YouTube tutorial there. Like I have to consume like so much media all at one point because I feel like I'm wasting time or whatever by switching my brain off. It's such a bad habit because my attention span has drastically dipped over the past year. Like it has to be constant sort of like overload of information at all times. But I think there needs to be a lot more like spoken about kind of like creatives and giving themselves like a good, just like a rest, like a break. It's almost like there's always like this not a race, but this innate sense of competition, which is so unhealthy in the creative community. Especially with feeling like you should be further than you are now, like you're too old or like you're getting older and like time is running out.
That one's bad. I feel that a lot. And then I feel like that one goes both ways. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, like I'm young, you know, I'm like doing all this shit. Exactly, and then other times I'm like, this kid's 17 years old, what the fuck?
I know.
He's so good or whatever. I think the rest thing too, like I try to like advocate for that, but I try not to like harp on it on like YouTube and stuff too much because I don't really practice what I preach in that situation, and I don't want people to like assume. I hate to say it, but I feel like there's some, because it's not really like good advice, but I think that there is like that like constant kind of insanity of like always working, and I almost think that we haven't figured out as a collective like society on how to be like accomplish everything to like a high degree without doing that. Like if you look at all the people that are, and like I'm not really trying to compare myself to these like great people, right? But all the people that have gotten there, I look at some of their like workflows and stuff, and it's just like it's not good. It's insane, and like I feel like that's just kind of, you have to choose. Do you want to be like I guess healthy as an individual, or do you want to have a healthy like creative pursuit? It's kind of hard.
It's true. It's almost like you have to sacrifice one. But in a way, it's like that's the commitment you're making, really. Maybe there isn't a balance between creativity and like having a life and having like mental stability. I hope not.
The one thing I do though, however, found like the one I do that is good is I do things still. Like if I go to like, you know, shows or parties and go out and hang out with people, I do that. And I think maybe that's just my only like relaxing or whatever, even though it's like active. Well, I can't work out there. It's like impossible. It's like I'm not gonna be at like a rave or some shit like with my phone out like trying to write down like a script or something or like draw a sketch, you know.
You never know. Like working in obscure places is a really fun thing to do because you receive like a brainwave of like creativity and then you just have to like get it down on paper.
Right.
Like, I'm always stopping midway in the street to take like photogrammetry models of random like skips and like random bits and pieces. Like my brain is always like firing, and it is a blessing and a curse. I think my burnout has been like very, very profound in the past few months because I've been like trying to get my channel like back into like a healthy kind of like posting flow. And then with uni and then lots of like side projects and stuff, there's never that moment where I can just like kind of like sit down and have a stop and think and like reflect. And it is like having an emotional and mental toll, honestly. But that I think I'm just built different. Like I'm built to tolerate it in a way. Like, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me.
Right.
Like maybe for like a couple minutes and then I'll be like, right, back to work. Like sometimes I find comfort in that little thing.
Like, I read a lot of people not complaining, but struggling with like burnout and different things. And then I think I've gotten to the point of it, but like I've obviously not gotten to the point of it where it like inhibited me from like actually doing things. Like I still do it, but maybe I'm just in like a constant state of that forever or something.
Yeah.
But I've never felt like, I've never gone for like, you know, weeks where I just like am crippled by it and like don't do anything. I can't really even imagine that feeling. So
like, I'd be crippled by it, but I'm still participating in it, and I still like have to get up every day and then carry on doing what I'm meant to be doing or whatever it is. So I think, yeah, I genuinely would rather this than kind of have a brain empty, like content with not having anything to do. So as much as I complain about it, I love it.
When you did, because you obviously like took the break from YouTube for like a good amount of time, and when like I know you were busy with university and all that, but was doing other things the only reason you didn't do the YouTube for that long, or was it also just you weren't gonna do it anyway type of thing?
I genuinely did like attempt to make a bunch of videos.
Oh yeah, I remember you said they got like corrupted or whatever.
Yeah, there was it's probably like self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. Like, I'd be filming it thinking something's just gonna go wrong, or like this is never gonna see the light of day. But I did have good intentions and try my best, and like I've got like gigabytes of like hours of tutorials that like never made it. But I think after like the Chrome text tutorials and all of that blew up, and it's just like ubiquitous all over the web now with like design, or people don't really like think it's design, or like that whole thing. Like, yeah, I just was like, I can't really outdo myself anymore. Like, this is it. That's my best album kind of thing. So I kind of just thought, I know that's imagine that's my magnum opus. Like, it's embarrassing. It's a bit embarrassing because that whole video was, all of my videos slightly have a tone of like it's all a joke, really. Like, it's all a joke underneath. It's a good joke. The surface. It's a massive cosmic design joke that I've just pulled on the entire like graphic design community. But after that, I was just kind of like, do I have anything else to offer people? And like, there's so much like, I made a video about this. There's so much imposter syndrome, and I always try to not let like the numbers like affect how I feel about my actual practice. So I've just said to myself, until I can come up with something like a really comparable, like sturdy, well-structured-ish, sincere tutorial, I'm not gonna like make anything. So I'm kind of glad that I stuck to that, and I'm definitely in a better mental space to be making stuff now, because I like, I don't know, it was really bizarre, like kind of having that all these people start paying attention to me. And I think I just needed to stop for a minute and like reevaluate where I was going to take it, because at the point where I posted that, I was still really like blissfully ignorant. Like I had like 10 people kind of like paying attention.
You know how you were saying that you wanted to wait for the tutorials to like, for you to come up with some like grand idea maybe or whatever? I feel like the last video you did that wasn't really like, you know, necessarily structured for someone to follow it. Like the liminal spaces one, that was like my favorite probably that you've done, just because I'm not going to follow them anyway. So like, it's something that I could just watch, you know, because it's like, I found for myself, like I'm kind of stepping away a little bit from like software as much tutorials, and more into the space of like design as like the thinking behind it, or like freelance and a lot of other avenues, because you can't watch a video that's a tutorial unless you're going to do it. Why would you ever watch a tutorial video? Like, you have to really love the person to just watch it for like the love of the game or whatever, which is interesting, because it seems like from what I've read in some of your comments and stuff, that's how people look at you sometimes. Like, they'll say like, I don't even have Blender. Like, I just watched this hour-long tutorial.
It's bizarre.
Because you said you had the, they were saying like, I saw a lot of people say that your videos are like chill, and it's kind of like ASMR
like
for,
sleepy.
for them. So, I mean, I feel like you're almost like a, it's like a protest a little bit to like what actually is supposed to work on YouTube. Like everything's supposed to be like high retention and like moving and like very engaging, and your stuff's super chill, and it's like people will watch the whole thing. So that just speaks to your like maybe personality and style.
I appreciate that, because like I did pay attention to the comments that were saying stuff like this is some good like before bed like kind of like chill video kind of format. And you got so like the Aphex Twin type beats in the background and exactly shit. Like I'll try and make something that highlights, you know, something that you can make, but also it's a shorter format for the people that have commented that they have no intention of even downloading Blender, let alone making anything, but still like enjoying kind of like the process. Like, I don't know who would sit through an hour-long tutorial like of me narrowing along to that kind of stuff, but apparently a bunch of people would, and that's kind of what I kind of want to diversify more, because my style is so I don't know, like off the wall, off the cuff. I'm not sure what the terminology is, but I can't deviate away from that as much as I try and refine my approach. So creating like a shorter format, and also I stand corrected, that wasn't even a liminal space, that was like a back room type space. So liminal space classically defines like a transient space, like a corridor, like a space between two like destinations. Did someone like roast you or something? Low key, but it's fair enough. If I'm supposedly obsessed and like hyper fixated on these, I should know like that's theoretically. True. You did kind of hype it up a little bit. So I take that on the chin, and like I've done a lot more research since. But yeah, so backrooms might become a little series, because I've got a bunch. I don't know if I want to say too much, but I've had a bunch of like random, on the theme of like bedtime, relaxation, YouTube, how can I incorporate this with what I like to do? So a little spoiler of the channel of what's to come is I'm going to start moving into like physical, like instead of rendering things digitally, like moving into like actual physical sculpture, like 3D printers, like building some stuff with some cool materials. I don't know, a little bit of resin. I don't know, something.
That'd be cool.
So transitioning like, because I used to be like invested a lot in like physical mediums. I wanted to be a painter at one point. I used to do massive like 2 meter like large like oil paint portraiture, like semi-realistic stuff. So I want to connect back with the physical mediums, because sitting at a computer all day, I love it, I'm in my element, but I need to go outside a little bit here and there.
That's why I've been doing the same shit, like not very like recently, like it's been a while now, but incorporating a lot more like analog and stuff like into the workflow, at least if like maybe I'll start and end in the computer, but like I don't want there to be like no like hapticness to the work at all. So I've been, even if sometimes I'm like kind of like jamming it in and it's not like really suitable for the project, I'll at least try it, because
still something.
Sometimes you look at like the computer all day, and then you could have created like the most beautiful render or design or whatever, but it doesn't really feel like you really made anything, because it doesn't really exist. It's just like it's true. A file, you know. And
if your hard drive ever got just like, I don't know, corrupted, you have nothing to show for yourself in a way.
Right. And it's nice to, I got a filing cabinet recently, and I've been just saving all my collages and shit in there, and I'm just like, damn, this is cool. Like, look, this is all like actual things. Like, it never feels good to look at like a folder on your computer and be like, yeah, look at all this stuff.
That reminds me of this artist, and forgive me, I do not remember her name because I only like found out about her like yesterday. But she worked on a bunch of stuff. She's like a graphic designer. She worked on a bunch of stuff for like Wes Anderson, pretty much all of his films. And
I know her. Is it the one that makes the shit that's in movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's dope.
She says Annie like, Atkins, if you could design, I think that's her name. Like, if you can, so she does a lot of like, I guess, period or like faux period props and stuff from like the Wes Anderson times, whenever that was. But if it was allegedly made in a different time, then you should realistically use the technology that they had. So like stamps or like paper, lino printers, whatever they had. And yeah, you could create that effect in Photoshop. And that's such a skilled thing to understand how these textures react in real life. but there's also like a level of like, there should be definitely a balance between like, and that's what I really like as a movement. Like right now I use a lot of scan textures, but like people actually just scanning random objects on a scanner,
Right.
like using physical and like physical hardware and software to move towards your designs. I think there's always like with anything really, there's cycles where things come into fashion, out of fashion, and going back to like the real world is definitely like making it like a kind of comeback. The mixed media element is so beautiful to see. So that's why for one of my tutorials, like we could have just like, I made like a smudgy texture, fingerprint texture, and you can easily like find that on Google, but just like a small kind of annoying but fun little step, making it yourself. Like why not?
Right.
Why not?
Well, the human error is like irreplicable when you do that kind of stuff. So like I sometimes I'll post like a design and I'll texturize it in the real life, like with printing and tape and sandpaper and stuff, and all the kids will say like, where'd you get that texture? Like, where'd you get like what pack is this from or whatever? Like what asset pack? I'm like,
it can't
I don't
be
know,
duplicated.
like from Staples, like the office section pretty much.
Hey, new sample pack just dropped and it's literally just you just scratching it. Like that's what I mean. If you're gonna replicate the textures, might as well just hop. It is tedious, like hopping between like physical and digital, but it's so worth it. And also it gives you more of like a tactile kind of connection with what you're making, because that's what I've been like missing out recently. I do kind of miss painting and like inhaling all of the white spirit fumes from like the oil paints and the solvents, and like there's just an element of like, I don't know, sacrifice that comes with it that I think digital takes away from you. So definitely gonna
also,
be moving
it's sometimes
towards
hard when I work on, because there's like three, I guess, avenues or whatever in my day. I have the like content creation, we could call it, and then I have the design for like others, so like freelance and commissions and whatnot, and then I have like the art, where it's you know, maybe it goes on social media, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's a physical thing or digital, and that's just for fun. And when you do in the computer freelance or content stuff all day, when you're done, it's really hard to want to do the more of that for fun. But if you're working on the computer all day, it doesn't feel like you're doing more work if you switch to like collage or, you know, painting or whatever. Like I'm working on a series right now. It's this collage series with them. It's like I don't really want to say until I put it out, but it's pretty cool. And like, it's been fun to have like a grand idea that you can just execute like different pieces on that all connect, rather than like having to think of this crazy concept for each thing, you know, like have some continuity to it or whatever you want to call it.
That's why I swear by sketchbooks. And I think I have like 7 or 8 of them now. So I'm going to get like one main book and kind of like extrapolate all like the cool kind of pages from past projects and put them together. But like I could draw my designs or like brainstorm on an iPad, and sometimes I do. But genuinely just being able to like go to the park and draw on some paper, just switch away and switch mediums and switch format as well. Because drawing on an iPad is so smooth and it feels weird. And I know you can get like screen protectors that feel like paper, but just like we spoke about this last time as well, like analog is so important to me. And yeah, it's messy. Yeah, I lose pages and designs all the time. I'm the annoying person that when I draw in a sketchbook, I just pick a random page each time, so it takes me like half an hour to find whatever I'm looking for. It's so bad. I don't know why I still do that, honestly. I thought I grew out of it, but it just resets. It helps me reset, and I can get my ideas down so much quicker than typing or like writing on an iPad or something like that. So I really like, I'm excited this year to refine. I said this last time as well, like uni is going to be out of the way and I can actually live up to what I've been trying to implement for myself. But I have put a lot of pressure on myself in the past year to balance all of these things, but I do feel like I'm starting to get somewhere.
That's
slowly.
I'm excited. And then 2 things that I've been doing too, I think that have been cool, and I suggest people try out. I'm kind of in this like sticky note, like hell phase right now. Like they're all over my desk and my computer. Like you can't even see the glass on my PC because it's just covered. And it sucks because it conflicts with like the inner monologue I have for everything to also be like minimalist on my desk. So it's hard for me to get over it. However, I never like these shits are a $1 billion business for a reason. Like I write stuff down all the time and ideas, and they never get executed because they're just in some book somewhere that I don't look at randomly. So I suggest it. I've also been, let me see if I could grab it. So I've also been just printing out a bunch of the stuff I like that goes on Instagram, just so I can put it in like,
oh, that's so cool.
This, instead of it just being, you know, always
on a Pinterest board somewhere
on the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is just like a bunch of random posters or whatever I made. And then if you print them out, like now at least they exist in real life.
It's
right?
materialized. I really like that. Yeah. I don't know why. I think because obviously I haven't moved into my own place yet. I'm still a student. I haven't really had time to slowly invest in kind of like bookkeeping and cementing the things I've been up to over the past year into a physical medium. But as soon as I do, like the amount of books you have behind you, that's the level I want to be at.
Yeah.
You've got quite a minimal space, but you still like are very like maximalist in terms of like content and knowledge and like beautiful like pieces like that, which is definitely what I want to start.
I try to think about it like people always think about like minimalism or something as like living without, but I look at it as more like a essentialism or maybe something in that nature, where I don't ever feel like I'm never going to get rid of something because I just don't want things, but I will look at it and give it an honest inventory and be like, what the hell is this? Like, do I actually need this shit?
Really
and then the more shit that you get rid of, the more you create a void for something even better to put in there, you know? So you can always just upgrade.
Quite like a minimal wardrobe as well, or is it?
Not really, no. Honestly, I feel like I need to get like more. I was just telling my girlfriend about this. I need to get more like adult clothes. All I wear is like t-shirts, graphic t-shirts every day.
Me too. My mum always tells me off. I need to like, yeah. That's a couple things. I need a drip upgrade this year. I want to start like, I still feel 17 and I'm almost 23. Like I have so much denial about that, but I definitely need to, upgrade my drip a bit.
Like I would just go to the office like and have to do these big like meetings with people, and I'd just be wearing like some Minor Threat or like some like other punk band or like some hardcore band shirt, and they're just kind of like, I don't think you should ever stop
doing that. It's always about like having the switch up. So if you wear t-shirts all the time and then occasionally like, you know, a black tie event comes up and you just switch up and like, oh, so he can do the tuxedo and he can also do the t-shirts and the jorts. Okay. I might have to get some 3/4 jorts.
There's something about it though. Like I dress up if I have to, something that it's like literally forced, whatever, a wedding, funeral, something. And there is like something to it where like you feel like pretty good sometimes, you know, like when you put all this shit on, you're like, oh,
it's
damn.
It's the switch up. It's like if you don't cut your hair for ages and then you cut it and everyone's like, oh, okay, like,
right.
It's more, I think the switch up is more important than the consistency that you can actually switch up and like catch everyone off guard.
I cut the mullet. I felt like crazy for a little bit.
I miss the mullet, man. I'm just unbiased towards them.
They all have, everyone has them. Pretty cool. I don't know.
I know. It is true.
I get bored of like the same shit. It's a bit
unanimous now. No, I get you. I'm trying to grow mine out now. I'm going to have like a long mane of hair and start doing, I don't know how this podcast got onto hairstyles. I don't know how I managed to make that happen. I think it was the jorts. The jorts is like a pivotal. I'm trying to buy some right now, but no one's gonna know what hit them. In the UK, you don't see those anywhere, not at all.
Yeah, or like some Jenkos or some shit.
I'm heavily influenced by TikTok, and that's really bad. I need to delete it. It's not good. It's not.
I know. I think
it's not good. Do you have it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have it. I think I've seen it.
It's like I try to just use it to put to
but then
expel
it uses you.
stuff. Not I try to live by this like 80-20 rule of like 80% output, 20% consumption
input.
Of social media. Probably isn't like, that's probably pretty aspirational for me to say. Like I probably live somewhere closer to like 70 or 65, because sometimes I'll get on TikTok. You're still winning though. It's a disaster. Like you're
still winning though. 70 is still a win in my books. Like it's well, and now I'm pretty sure the limit's gone up to definitely. It's and now like if I'm looking for a recipe, I'll go on TikTok. If I'm looking for like fashion inspiration, whatever, that like now the videos have gone up to like 10 minutes maximum, I think. So in a way, like it might become the new YouTube. It's bizarre. And I don't know. I really don't know what I think of the platform. I thought it was gonna die. I thought it was like a bubble, but it just seemed to like snowball and gain so much more traction, which is it's like even the police in the UK are now faking like TikToks and stuff. Or is it the UK? I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of like bizarre stuff going on.
The fact that they're long now too, that one kind of threw me for like a loop, because their whole
what's that?
Business, like that they're long, that they can be long now.
Oh yeah.
Like their whole business model is like a like it's like short form content, you know, it's like quick to consume and probably quick to forget as well. But like now, like you'll watch one and then you look at the little bar and you're like, what the hell? This is about to be 8 minutes. Like I'm not going to watch this. You know?
And I get a lot of videos now because the algorithm knows me so well. So many videos about breaking the scroll, like getting out or like improving your attention span. So it'll be like a 5-minute video. I know it's bizarre. Like it'll be a 5-minute video of someone explaining something really slowly and painstakingly and just saying like, if you scroll away, you basically lose. And it is, I don't know what I think about it, because it makes absolutely no sense, because once the video's over, you're just back into like the echo chamber again. But
well, like with your stuff, it wouldn't like, so with YouTube and stuff, it's like more intentional, I guess. Like I think it, you know, it relies on like the thumbnail and the title and stuff, because, or how much someone feels connected to their person if they're like already a subscriber, and they have to like say, I want to watch Intra make like a liminal space. Like TikTok, it's like, no, now you're already in the liminal space and here's the video and now you're watching it.
Exactly.
But I would, it'd be interesting to see if you could make something that you make on there and someone actually wait for it. Cause I don't know if the people on there have enough like willpower.
I don't want to move my identity to TikTok. Like I'm planning my exit strategy right now, because the sooner I get out of that, I can just see my life will just improve exponentially. But on the same, like, I've also learned so many bizarrely, like that artist I spoke about earlier, so many bizarrely fascinating, like niche interests of mine. She was on there? Yeah, that's where I found out about it. And some TikToks are generally like presented in such a beautiful, eloquent and exciting and refreshing way. So that's what I'm living for. Like my TikTok is basically Blender and like design and textures and like nature and stuff like that and recipes. So I do have a lot to learn from it. But then there's also just like the bizarre kind of like non-linear, like have you seen those like weird dream sequence TikToks where people just like recreate dreams, like whole sentence, like sentences,
some other shit on there.
You don't want to get. They're so funny, but it's just like you're wasting my brain right now.
Mine's just like people get. I feel like away. Every time I go on there, it's like people getting hurt and shit. Like that's like my algorithm.
My feed is like perfectly curated to be like educational and entertaining, but it is like a death trap. So I only let myself go on it like at certain times in the day.
I wanted to mention it earlier too, when you brought it up, and then you did again, so it's perfect. But the girl's name's like Annie Atkins, and I recommend people listening to check it out. She did all the stuff for like Isle of Dogs and like a bunch of other Wes Anderson movies, and it's really cool. It's like basically she makes posters and flyers and cigarettes and things that would be in that like world, and that's like a really cool job, I feel like.
Shout out Annie Atkins. I'm just having a look at her stuff again. It's like,
I wanted to ask you something too, because so you do like computer science, you make music and DJ, or I don't know if you make music, but I know you DJ a little bit, and then you do Blender and kind of, you said you painted and art and sketch and all these things, and I feel like you also do a good job though at like feeling like all those worlds feel like kind of connected in your space. Like they all feel like you're making them. It doesn't seem like, why is she doing that? You know, like it all feels like connected in a way. But what would you do if you had to only like live the rest of your life with one of those and give up the rest of them?
It's so funny that you say that, because I talk about this weirdly often. I think I annoy myself sometimes with how many things I want to do, and then I'm that annoying person that will just do it. Like I somehow find the time to squeeze in the time to learn a niche skill from zero, and I'm not embarrassed to be like really bad at it at first.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that kind of sets me free. Like I'm not embarrassed to make a crappy piece of 3D artwork, because I know each piece I make will exponentially get better. So I used to annoy myself because I knew realistically, like I can do so many things, and I enjoy the challenge of like being really bad at something and breaking out of that and getting better. So I always have this conversation with people, like, what would I want to do for the rest of time? Like if I could only pick one thing to further, and it's genuinely is like 3D. I can't go a day without thinking about if I haven't managed to hop on Blender that day, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do the next day when I get a chance. Okay. I really do enjoy music, but I'll leave that to the people that are better versed in that. That's probably, music actually might be the one thing that sounds so bad, but it might be the one thing that I can't do, purely because I came across this thing, ironically again on TikTok a few months ago. So if I asked you to close your eyes and imagine like a hammer or like any object, an umbrella or anything, if you close your eyes, how strongly would you be able to see that image from like a scale of like lucidly crisp colors and everything to like a shadow to kind of like faint to kind of like nothing?
I think it would, I was doing it with the hammer and that worked out pretty well, but when I try to do it with the umbrella, it wasn't as good. I think it maybe comes down to like how recognizable the exact thing is to me. The object.
Yeah. So like, wait, so have you never seen an umbrella?
No, I have. I just, there's so many options like with how they look. A hammer looks like a hammer in all different kinds.
Yeah, that's true. It can only look one way. So like, another example is if you're doing like mental maths, can you kind of like close your eyes and carry the one and see the numbers and kind of write where they are and have placeholders and stuff, sort of?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm that good at that one. I usually do it, I don't know. Like when I do math in my head, it doesn't look like as if I'm drawing it down. Like it's I do it this other way in my head.
Okay, that one doesn't hold up. But like and weirdly enough, even though I work in like creative work, if I close my eyes and try and imagine any object, even one that I see on a daily basis, complete pitch black, like absolutely nothing. So that's why I always have to write things down when I do my maths exams for computer science and stuff. Like they give you a sheet of paper to like do all your calculations on. Yeah. Everyone leaves the exam blank sheet. My sheet, every angle, every corner of the page is covered in like some new, like me scrawling like 1+1 or something. Like I need to see it in front of me for it to exist. So with music, back to like my point is coming back. Yeah, I was wondering where this is back. Music production, that sort of thing. Maybe the only way I could do it is if I could visually see the wave, but like I have really bad object impermanence. Like if I can't physically see it, it's almost like it doesn't exist for me. So that's why I think that actually might be why creativity and visual kind of like manipulation in arts is so important to me, because if I can't be doing it, it's almost like a part of me isn't existing in that moment, which sounds quite unhealthy now that I say it out loud, but it kind of makes me feel sane in that little bubble, because I can control and manipulate all those factors to like a visual outcome.
That seems good for not being influenced by like things that already exist. Like I think that might be what is like maybe a weakness, but also like your biggest strength and why you're able to come up with like kind of weird concepts and things, because maybe like another person would think like, oh, well, chairs don't look like that. You know, like if I imagine it in my head, that's not how it should look. But maybe if you were like, oh, you would try to imagine it and you're like, I don't even know. So I'm just going to create it like my way, you know, and that might actually help, you know?
It's weird though, because like doodling, like if I had to access any object, I could doodle it easily. But it's just the kind of like mental visualization. It doesn't exist for me until it's like physically represented and like observed with my eyes. So I don't know, that is definitely why I am very sketchbook heavy, because by the time I get to a computer, that whole thing that like I can't explicate it unless I have like a medium in front of me. So it genuinely is like me thinking, like I can't think in my head, so I have to think on paper or it doesn't like click into place. So like, yeah, writing sketchbooks, they're super important to me. It's back to your question, which was, which would I have to pick? Like it would have to be like, yeah, like I said, Blender, because
just 3D art or whatever.
Yeah, Blender, 3D art.
Just the program Blender like is what you would choose as your life.
That's my lifelong passion. That's my quest, because it connects me to.
Or go ahead. Sorry.
No, just my closing statement. I could go on for this for hours, but I just feel like it connects me to my reality, because I'm recreating things that I find and see in textures that I find in real life. So in a way, it's really humanizing for me, because I've always felt almost like, not that I'm not human, but I've always struggled to connect. And so it is, in a way, it is my like odd way of doing that. Okay. Yeah, that's my closing argument.
It's a good closing statement. That should go in your dissertation that you're working on.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, so you create a lot of stuff that is what most people would probably say like Y2K-esque, like maybe techno influenced, like technology, and also you know, acid rave, like whatever you want to call it, like all these like things you would type in on like Pinterest or something, right?
Yeah.
Those keywords. What do you think about the idea of that? Like that is pretty much propelled itself into like the mainstream, or at least like the mainstream of all these little like subsections, like graphic like even like logo design, album art, photography, everything's like Y2K. And I know it's that whole like 20-year cycle thing or whatever where things repeat, but what do you think, like why do you think that specific like kind of old tech like rave stuff has become like so popular again and seen that resurgence? And does that make you feel like you want to switch it up at all?
To answer your second question, yeah, I'm definitely trying to switch it up. And your first question, I feel it might just be, so if you think of like old style like render engines from, I want to say like the 80s and the 90s, they weren't as capable as what we have today. And so a lot of my design, like you can get results quite quickly. And so I guess it naturally would emulate kind of like what would take you hours to do in the 80s and the 90s with a really slow engine. You can kind of replicate quickly today. But I genuinely think like humans are just like, they're silly creatures, and lights and colors and textures excite them. And something like, I could look at a metal, like, I don't know, a metal can in real life and not be fascinated at all. Like there's nothing fascinating about this Fanta like peach whatsoever. Great flavor, by the way. I don't know if you guys have it in the US, probably.
Yeah, orange.
We just peach, man.
Oh, peach?
It's so good.
Wow, we don't have that.
I thought this was an import. There's nothing fascinating about it in real life, but as soon as it's on a screen, it's almost like the novelty. I think it's still quite a novel thing. Humans just like reproducing objects in 3D space. Like, and now like most of like product photography is all 3D, IKEA catalogs, all of that.
Well, every photo shoot and stuff you see too, it's like that whole like warped, like zoomed out perspective where like the foot's all big and it's like very, very like you know, European like 2000s like rave scene aesthetic.
Yeah, I think people are just protesting the hyper curated feel, which people used to think, to be a photographer, like, if you took up photography back in like 2013 and like, you know, the Zoella YouTube era or whatever, you think, I need to get like a DSLR and I need to get this lens, and to do portrait photography you have to follow all these rules, aperture, ISO, and whilst you can do that, people now are realizing like there are non-linear ways to achieve a certain effect, and it kind of saddens me a little bit that maybe the mass availability of information is leading people to not experiment and find their own conclusions to things. But in a way, like I'm getting a couple of the negative comments I've gotten on my page is just kind of like, I guess talking about the fact that it's too easy to get to this approach, and that people have been involved in 3D for 20, 25 years. And it's not an easy step-by-step process, and it shouldn't be commodified in that way. While I agree with that, like, free flow of information is very important, and the whole basis of Blender being open source as well, like, that kind of feeds into it. The community should be just as open. Don't be bitter about people wanting to learn and access something complicated via transit of a kind of simplified tutorial, for instance.
Yeah.
So I don't know where like the community is headed, because I'm starting to see like lots of TikToks and stuff about easy 2-step Blender tutorials and da-da-da-da. So it's an interesting progression. But I know personally that I'm not, like, I want to push my work a lot further than what I've been doing, because I came from like an abstract, non-linear kind of narrative background with 3D, with animation in general, and I kind of want to go back towards that. Like steering away from digestible content and formatting and art, personal projects anyway, into just weird stuff, like really weird stuff, and releasing tutorials here and there. But once I've laid out the tools, it's really for like people to just like take it on, go on their own journey with it. I can't hold everyone's hand the whole way, which is like, yeah, it's difficult. I don't really. That first question was quite hard to answer. I'm not entirely sure, honestly.
Yeah, I started to forget what I even asked you as you
It was just kind of about... You can't give me 2 questions in one, because I'll just
that's my bad.
I'll butcher both of them in some massive...
It's also so hot in this room. Now that it's back into summer, I'm turning all into a tomato. One last thing I want to say on that too is I also think it's just a lot of it's rooted in like nostalgia and stuff, and like when I was in the time when that was actually the thing that wasn't like vintage and the like Y2K or whatever, like no one was like, this is the dopest shit ever. Like they were just like, oh, it's like just whatever, you know? So I think that's part of it. It's like people romanticizing like past eras and stuff. Someone asked on Instagram, I wanted to like, I guess like touch on this because I think maybe it's helpful, but they were asking how we stay, kind of talked about in the beginning, but how we stay like productive and how to not get like distracted and stuff too much when you're like needing to get stuff done. And I'm wondering if you had any ideas for that or any tips.
Like, first, I think it's important to remember that no one is a robot. No one is like, if you're comparing yourself to any standard out there, you're seeing a hyper curated version of what that person's actual work ethic is like.
Right.
You're seeing their output. You're not seeing, you know, what took them to get there. Because I'll look at, you know, like, for instance, you, like, you're posting and you're so consistent. And I'm like, how? How does he do that? But again, like, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes with you. And obviously, everyone has their own way of kind of motivating themselves, but I think I've touched on this a tiny bit on I did an ask me anything a while back, and I think especially today with seeing people like 30-day progression or 30-day this or 30-day that, and seeing this I don't know, it's not natural to progress quickly in anything. So giving yourself just being realistic with yourself in terms of like small, like exponential, you know, a small exponential progression towards a goal. I'm reading a book at the moment called Atomic Habits, which I've only started just getting into. Is it a good read? Because I've heard good things about it.
It's only good if you actually are wanting to do that stuff and like make those changes. If you're not actually wanting to develop like habits or kick habits, then you're kind of just reading it for fun, you know?
Mad. No, I'm definitely in a progressive point of my life. So I've started waking up early. I've got a job now. I've got like a side job, which helps me wake up so that I can have the rest of the day to do what I have to do. And I've been drinking water. These are small things. So I had like 20 things that I wanted to accomplish this year. And I've just said to myself, just literally drink water and wake up early. Those are the only ones you have to do now. Even if you don't get anything done in the day or at least you've completed those two. And those are slowly kind of like kicking me back into gear. So I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself at the moment to do a billion things. But what I like to do is split up my day into like quadrants or like trios and set out like 2 or 3 achievable goals in each section. And if I don't achieve those for whatever reason, when I enter my new quadrant, it's almost like it's a fresh brand new day and I've got like that enthusiasm so that not all is lost and I can just try again. Like you always have an opportunity to try again. And even though like the mountain of things you have to accomplish just seems to get bigger and bigger, the sooner you start, like you actually will get somewhere. And it's all fun and dandy to say this, but genuinely just don't be afraid about being bad at something, because that's the point, and you will like improve. But I just have to give myself like that motivational talk every time.
There's also something to like I try to, I don't know what I want to call it, like the core task or whatever, but let's say I use like Google Calendar because I move stuff around so much. If I did my planning analog, it would be like chaos. So
that's why my life is chaos.
So I do
I'm a
like
Post-it note girl.
I'll have like this thing, like the main thing. So I'll have 4 things to do, right? Let's say I have to do this podcast with you. I have to start concepting on this project, and then 2 other things, let's say. This is the one that needs to be done. Like it's cool. Just, it doesn't matter. I already scheduled it with you. So like it needs to be done. Right. So that's like the core task or whatever. That way, like, even if I just fuck off on all the other things, which I'll probably not, at least like you feel good because you did the one thing. At least set one thing that you're saying, like, no matter what, I'm going to finish it. And the other stuff, if you finish it, it's like good for you. And if you don't, it's like, well, it wasn't even your main thing for the day. So you're good. Do it tomorrow, you know? That's how I kind of look at it.
It's about like cutting yourself some slack, but also you can't cut yourself slack for everything. So be a bit harsh on yourself too sometimes. Just be like, give yourself like, G-check yourself when you are like slipping behind. It is hard. It is difficult, and often like you know when you're doing and you're being in the right place or like doing the right thing. Right. So just innately trust that instinct.
Like this deep work book that I really recommend. It's called Deep Work. I've talked about it before. But basically like it's about like getting into these deep flow states of work where, you know, like 2, even 3, 4 hours of that state is like far more productive than like kind of working all day. So if you can just do that, find that chunk of time in your day and do that, then like you got all that shit done, and like you don't have to work for 8 hours all day. Like you can, I guess, like, but just do it focused, like little intervals like that.
Flow state is such an incredible mindset to be in when you're working. Even if things are kind of going wrong, it's just like a big like kind of wad of problem solving, and it's so satisfying, especially if like maybe you've picked up a new software and you're finally starting to grapple with how it works. You're not having to like Google every 3 seconds how it works. So if you're comfortable in that space and you're just like problem solving through each chunk and getting somewhere like even if it's slowly or like quickly. Flow state is such a beautiful, like, it's probably one of like the creative highs or something, or like a feeling that lots of creatives chase after. And you get it sometimes. You're just like, wow, like it's kind of like the what's that thing? That syndrome where it's like an imposter syndrome, like killer.
The opposite, huh?
Like, yeah, exactly. It just like reaffirms why you should be occupying this space or like developing that practice. So it's always like fluctuating between flow state and imposter syndrome. And I guess that is like the challenge, the tribulations of a designer, of a creative, of an artist. I
just thought maybe that's why I like do so many things all the time, is because the more things you're doing, the more opportunity you have to enter that than to enter the imposter syndrome.
It's like the creative samsara or something. It's like, I think, you're just trying to prove to yourself that I'm doing this whole thing for a reason, I guess. And it's not all for nothing. And so, inevitably, the more you keep working, you are gonna, it's almost like you're gambling, or like you will like feel like that soon. And maybe the better you get and the more integrated you become, they'll become more frequent. That's probably like wisdom that's growing old. I'm excited to just be like a really old lady living in like Cambodia or something, in some hut, just that knows what she's doing.
Telling about the good old days of Blender.
Maybe, exactly. It'll be called something else, like, or I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited to grow old.
When I work on like branding projects and I'm working on the logo, the time I always get in this like flow state is when I'm in Illustrator, and every time I'm making a small adjustment to something, I'm creating a copy of it. So then they just start to become like everywhere across like the whole screen. And I'm always like, I'm a big advocate for like non-destructive editing, So like every time you're saving like a backup, and like it'll just get insane. And I let my desk get insane when I'm working on a project with the notes and everything. And then there's something nice about doing all that and then cleaning it all back up and getting it to like nice. And then, it just kind of comes back and forth like that.
One of my small goals for this year is to kind of just keep my filing systems like consistent and deleting unwanted kind of like cache files and like, because my C drive is just always like, it never used to be like that before I started taking up Blender, but now it's pretty much always full, which is, I just don't like living life on the edge.
Yeah,
so just
I've been having to do that too.
This is the year of like semi-refined Intra, I think.
That's good.
I'm moving towards that.
Yeah, I mean,
got enough inspiration.
Now you've said it. You've said this on here. You said it a little bit last time, so now you're in. And I mean, or I'm gonna have to send the clip to you or something if you ever say.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not doing
a year from now, if we do this again. To be fair, since the last podcast, the things I said was like, get back into YouTube. And whilst I didn't do it immediately after, I'm slowly actually doing it now.
Well, you did it before we talked again, so.
Exactly. So realistically,
I can't really
I'm
say
living
much.
up to my word.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's true.
It was, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the stuff you do, and it was really good talking with you again, and I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad we figured out some of the technical difficulties and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, but thanks for bearing with.
Yeah, you're all good. And is there anything else you want to plug or anything you have coming up you want to talk about?
Bro, I just want to plug you for a minute. Like, you've been doing bits with your channel, man, and like I just want to, I'm being inspired. I'm being rejuvenated always by the stuff you make.
Thank
I'm not gonna lie, your channel is my comfort space. Like, I'll just be in bed, curled up at like 4 a.m. just like watching some Permanent Glue. So just being like you, and thank you for having me, honestly.
Yeah, and thank you. And everyone, if you don't already know, check out Intra, and you can check out the other podcast we did too if you want to watch that from like last year. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.